Recording has begun.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular town council meeting for today, May 26th, 2026.
I would like to officially call this meeting to order at 6 p.m.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Gutenberg,
Here.
Councilman McCormick,
Here.
Councilman Sampson,
Here.
Councilman Johnson,
Here.
Mayor James.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Will everybody please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hope everyone has had a chance to review today's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries.
Is there a promotion? Next on our agenda, is this the consent agenda? Is there a promotion? A motion to approve the concept agenda as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Next is public comment. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name, and let us know if you live within the town limits. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening?
None. It's yours, Mayor James.
None. It's yours, Mayor James.
Wow. Thank you so much. We move into a very special part of our meeting tonight, recognizing our two amazing junior mayors. I know it seemed kind of odd to have a very full dais up here, but each year the Maryland Municipal League hosts the statewide If I Were Mayor essay contest. This year, nearly 900 students from across Maryland shared their ideas about what they would do if they were mayor. The essays were thoughtful, creative, and inspiring. What makes them even more powerful is seeing our communities through the eyes of 9 and 10-year-olds. At such a young age, they already recognize ways we can improve and make our towns even better. These students truly represent our future leaders. Tonight, we are so proud to recognize two outstanding students, Maxwell Talbert and Riley Alling. Right? Did I say that right? Okay. They are both fourth graders at Archbishop Neal School in Mrs. Guttrick's class. we have the great privilege of hearing each of them read their award-winning essay tonight. They were semifinalists in this statewide competition. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our first junior mayor, Maxwell Talbot, to read his essay.
If I were mayor, I would dedicate 1 month to care for the people who are less fortunate than us. Everyone in Charles County would come together to try and raise $50,000 to donate to homeless shelters all around Charles County. This is important because the homeless need to feel safe and healthy. In addition, other department heads and I would put together a film for the homeless telling them good ways to spend their money and to use what they have responsibly. A shelter can also find ways to split the money that is donated evenly depending on how many shelters there are in Charles County. Donating to shelters can also help people to be more generous to the people they see on the street by giving them food, clothes, water, and money. And if you are willing to do it, you could foster a homeless person for a year for free and help them to experience the life off the streets and in a house. At the end of the year, they could go to a new person's house. This can be a tradition to help the homeless people get a fresh start and grow in God's faith. Everyone deserves a nice, happy life. Don't take that away. Let's donate Charles County.
Very nice. Can we give him a round of applause? Junior Mayor Alling.
If I were mayor, I would start a horse therapy program to help children with mental, physical, and emotional struggles. I would work with schools, social workers, and healthcare workers to find kids who need and invite them to help join children are Children are community's future, and often kids have a hard time or feel scared to talk to adults. But horses mirror our feelings, giving kids a safe, caring place to work through their emotions and start to feel better. I personally know spending time with horses helps you grow in many ways. I've learned trust, confidence, responsibility, and patience, all while building strength. Whether riding or simply caring for these giant animals, every moment with a horse is a chance to build the life skills that will carry you forward. Many kids my age spend most of their time inside looking at a screen or on social media, which can cause problems itself. Just imagine being able to lead a huge 1,000-plus-pound animal, which takes special leadership and calm, clear way of communicating with people. Never learn. My best friend is Figgy, my pony. Every morning before I go to school, I clean his stall and feed him, and after school I return to the barn for more chores. I tell Figgy everything about my day. He listens without judgment, sometimes nudging me for a snuggle or a treat. When I see other kids feeling down, I wish they could have a Figgy too. There's something magical about being outside with horses and hay in your hair. If I were mayor, I would help others heal and grow with horses.
Maxwell and Riley, thank you both so much for sharing your essays with us this evening. Your ideas, your creativity, your passion for your community are truly inspiring. And how old are each of you? 9 and 10. Wow. You've reminded us all why this work matters and how important it is to keep looking at our town through fresh eyes. On behalf of the entire council, we are so proud of you and grateful that you have joined us tonight. Let's give them a round of applause again, please. We also want to thank your teacher, Mrs. Guttrick, and Archbishop Neal School for encouraging leadership and civic engagement at such an early age. Congratulations again to both of you. You have done an outstanding job. So before we continue, we know that our junior mayors have a really busy schedule. They are now mini celebrities, and they have other important engagements like Figgy, for sure. So while your time here with us has been very, very short, we want you to be able to go on with your evening. You can stay in the audience if you truly want to, or you can go home and feed Figgy. But you are officially excused from the remainder of the meeting, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. So thank you so much. And you guys can step down now. We're going to do some real serious business too. So there you go. Good job. Thank you. All right, I'm going to push this chair. Thank you. Thank you, both. This is one of the most fun things to do as mayor, is that you really get to talk with the youth, the fourth graders. As we have said, we've touched 50,000 fourth graders' lives in the last 25 years that we have been doing this If I Were Mayor contest. And I was just sharing with our junior mayors that the first junior mayor of La Plata back in 2017 is now graduating from high school this week. And he is on to bigger and better things. And he certainly did set the bar very high for that, for the junior mayors. So thank you both, my junior mayors here. You did an awesome job, and just continue to grow and continue to get those ideas out, because we are listening. All right, so next on the agenda, moving on, is matters of council discussion. 4.1, Finance Committee.
All right, good evening, council. This is Chuck Stevens, your town manager. Section 21-9 of ordinance 24-17 currently outlines the duties of the finance committee. And when you go back through there and read it, it struck me almost immediately when I looked at this ordinance when I first joined the town, because it had some prescriptive dates in there of April and November for some key report outs to the council. And as we went through the budget cycle this year, it was clear to me that those dates weren't in alignment with how I want to present the budget to you for your decision making. And sure enough, as we went through the budget, those dates didn't line up. So what you're seeing here tonight and what you have in your packet is an opportunity to correct that without fundamentally changing the role of the finance committee, leaving their responsibilities intact, but removing that prescriptive language about the April and November reports. You're still going to get those reports, but you're going to get them packaged the way that I packaged them to you this year going through the budget cycle. So that was the extemporaneous report, and now I'll just go through the rest of it for you. So as I mentioned, the proposed replacement duties are as follows: to provide analysis and opinion on revenue projections and forecast for the proposed fiscal year budget, to assess the financial condition of the town during the annual budget process, to provide an opinion on the fiscal sustainability of the annual budget, and to provide analysis of financial matters as requested by the town manager, and to review monthly financial reports, including the budget versus actual performance. So again, their role and responsibilities are very important. They remain intact. The fiscal impact, there is no direct fiscal impact associated with this amendment. The changes are administrative in nature and are intended to enhance financial oversight and decision-making without requiring additional funding or resources. The alignment with the strategic plan and your sustainability and ADA considerations are in your packet for your review. The staff recommendation for you this evening is to adopt ordinance 26-12, updating section 21-9 powers and duties of chapter 21, the finance committee, to reflect the finance committee's revised responsibilities. That is my staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor to council. Council Gutenberg, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Mark the date, mark the date.
Councilman McCormick?
Good, thank you.
All right, Councilman Sampson? Councilman Johnson? All right, I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward. If you are in favor of moving it forward, just please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to moving it forward? All right, we'll go on to our next 4.2, authority to correct Scrivener's errors.
Okay, council, a Scrivener's error or a clerical error is simply a mistake. They happen all the time. It could be a typo, it could be an incorrect date, could be a transposed number, especially when you're talking about spreadsheets and budgets. Things happen and sometimes there are errors. Right now, the way that errors are corrected in the town is we have to unwind it the way that it was adopted. So think about something like the APFO, an ordinance that had to have 2 public hearings and a notice in the paper, and there's a cost associated with that, and there's a timeline associated with that. If we were to identify a simple error, a misspelling, a typo, a transposed number, to fix that error properly, we would have to go through that entire process again, public notice, get it in the paper, 2 hearings for something that really is clear and obvious to anyone reading it that it was a mistake. What this item before you for your consideration this evening is a tool that is used across the nation that would allow, it's an ordinance that would allow the town attorney and the town clerk to identify and correct a Scrivener's error. And there's a feedback loop so that any errors that are corrected would come back in front of this council as a report that this error was identified in this section of the whatever, or the code, the resolution, the ordinance, this correction was made, so that the public would always have the opportunity to see what was changed. So you would see the original document with the error, then you would see the correction. So that's what this is all about here this evening. Again, there's no direct financial impact associated with the amendment. The changes are administrative in nature and are intended to enhance administrative efficiency and decision-making without requiring additional funding or resources. This amendment would mitigate potential unplanned expenditures caused by required notifications. Your strategic plan alignment and your sustainability and ADA considerations are in your packet for your review. The recommended action for you this evening is to adopt ordinance 26-13, creating section 1-16, authority to correct Scrivener's errors of Article 2, miscellaneous provisions, Chapter 1, general provisions, authorizing the town attorney and the town clerk to correct Scrivener's errors. And that is my staff report, pending your questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Gutenberg, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just real quick. I can't do it twice.
I know, I was
So-
wondering.
I think the practical application of this, right, is not that anyone is suggesting that we're going on an expedition to go correct and find everything. It is through normal administrative action. We come across something, the attorney and the clerk identify it and fix it. It's not a submit all of the things that irritate you in.
That's correct.
Typos.
I don't plan on cracking open the code and proofreading it with a red pen. It'll be as we go through something, we see something and go, oh, wait a minute. That's a typo, that's a misspelling.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why it's the town attorney, not the town manager that's going to do this, is because I definitely want an arm's length look at this. I want somebody to look at it and go, yes, that is clear and obvious. That is a mistake. We're going to correct it. And then again, there's a feedback loop for the public record and for council to know what changes were made.
Great, thank you.
Councilman McCormick?
No comment, thank you.
Councilman Sampson? Councilman Johnson?
No.
Okay, and thank you for pointing out that this is modeled on similar ordinances throughout the nation. I think that's a really very important, that it's just not something that you stayed up in the middle of the night and thought about, that there is a precedent on that. All right, so I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward. If you are in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anybody not? Okay, moving on to the Wills Memorial Park.
Okay.
Walkway.
Council, as you know, there's an extensive amount of work taking place out at the Wills Memorial Park, improvements to the playground, and then following that, there'll be improvements to the basketball and tennis courts. There is a walkway that goes through the park. It has been on our radar to replace that walkway. We had it programmed out in future years. However, with the heavy equipment moving across the park for the demolition of the playground equipment, that walkway further deteriorated. And so what staff is bringing before you for your consideration this evening is a resolution to allow us to get in there and repair that walkway in conjunction with the work that is ongoing instead of having it happen in the future years where it was already programmed. We think this makes sense because we don't want to do a ribbon cutting on a beautiful new park and then have this old walkway in there. Again, when we drove the heavy equipment across it to do the demolition, it deteriorated pretty significantly. So we're not real proud of how it looks right now, and it just makes sense to us, staff, that if we can get this done in conjunction with the ongoing construction, that makes sense. So I'll go over the fiscal impact for you here, and it's sometimes numbers aren't the easiest to follow when you're hearing them read aloud, but there is a table on page 2 of your agenda packet that I think spells it out for you pretty clearly. But I'll go through the whole impact for you now. In accordance with the town's procurement policy, staff obtained and reviewed 3 estimates for the installation of the concrete walkway associated with the playground replacement project. Austin Dirt Works submitted the lowest responsive proposal at an additional cost of $21,834 and included all necessary work to meet ADA accessibility requirements, including minimum slope and cross slope standards. The original approved contract for the playground replacement project was $834,889.39. A subsequent contract modification removed demolition costs and added a fence upgrade, reducing the contract amount to $823,149.38. After accounting for the proposed walkway installation and prior contract modifications, the overall net increase to the playground replacement project is $10,094. If approved, the total budget amendment associated with the playground replacement project could increase to $444,983.38. And then there's that table on the next page that I think really walks you through the math on this. I think the takeaway for tonight is the walkway was going to cost us $21,000 because we've identified some cost savings in other areas. The net increase to what we're asking you for tonight is $10,094. The strategic plan alignment, sustainability considerations, and ADA considerations are included in your packet for your review. Your recommended action this evening is to adopt Resolution 26-32, authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract agreement with Austin Dirt Works in the amount of $21,834 for the construction of the new walkway component of the Wills Memorial Park Playground project, and authorize a CIP budget adjustment in the amount of $10,094 necessary to construct the new walkway component of the Wills Park Playground project. And that is my staff report, pending your questions.
All right, Councilman Gutenberg.
Thank you for bringing this to us. This makes perfect sense, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councilman McCormick.
No, same. I do want to ask one question though, and I know it's in the report, but I just want to do my due diligence and get it on the record here. This is the FY26 budget, correct? That's the amendment that we're making it
Yes,
for?
yes,
Okay.
because the walkway would have been in 27. Yes,
Perfect.
that's
Okay.
correct.
That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Councilman Sampson. Councilman Johnson. And thank you, Mr. Stevens, for bringing this to us. I know that with it being less than a $20,000 threshold, you did not need to bring this to us for our approval, but it's exciting to have that in front of council to let us know and the public know that not only are we getting an amazing playground, but then all of the associated, the walkway, the tennis court, all of that coming to fruition. So when we do a ribbon cutting, it is going to be pretty spectacular. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Could I ask a follow-up question? Sorry, you brought it up though, but
Yes.
procedurally, so the cost was over $20,000. The net impact was under 10. I think you
Oh.
had to bring it to us either way.
Did
I
you?
was going to bring it to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the contract cost itself is 21,834.
Yeah,
So that's,
just over.
I would have absolutely brought that.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Just wanted to make that clear.
Well, look at you being a really good mayor pro tem. All right. So if there's a consensus to move forward, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries or consensus carries there. We'll see in a little bit. All right, brings us to 4.4, boards and commissions interview process. Councilman Johnson, I believe this one is yours.
Yes, this was presented on April 14th for dialogue about council conducting all citizen interviews to the council boards and commissions. I think we had a pretty healthy dialogue on April 14th, I believe, and other than that, I don't have Anything else to report unless there's questions?
Questions?
Maybe just for staff, I feel like we had a pretty robust conversation about it the other night. Do you feel comfortable that you have all the direction you need in order to put this in place?
So that evening, if you recall, was a rather late night for us, and this actually was in the beginning of the meeting, believe it or not. And so I think it got overlooked, at least by me, because of everything that was discussed later on that night. So I had to go back and rewatch the video. And so I did that, and the direction to staff that evening was to prepare a resolution to bring back in front of council for your review and consideration. So that's what's in your packet tonight. Your staff report is the same staff report as was previously discussed on April 14th. What's different in your packet this evening is under legislation, you have a resolution, and you can see in there, I have attempted to capture what I believe to be council's intent. Again, that meeting had a lot of conversation in it, and so it was hard at times to parse out the pieces that council was giving direction on. So I believe that the resolution you have for your consideration captures that. So to answer your question, yes, because that's what's reflected in the resolution. I think, though, I'll stop there and say I'm not sure that absent the resolution for council to deliberate on at the April 14th meeting, I think I've captured what I heard, but I still think that there's a conversation that needs to happen.
Okay, so I mean, I believe it captures the intent, which is just that this council would, as many others do, many other boards do, would simply be processing those through. And we would conduct it in, just as described, in a closed session when we do the no different than the interviews are conducted by the boards and commissions today. And then the vote is taken in public. So the real only change to me is that the interviewers are happening here at this board level.
Correct. I believe that's what the resolution spells out.
I agree. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple comments. So again, as Councilman Johnson, Councilman Gutenberg, Mr. Stevens brought up, we did have a discussion on this already, but there's a couple things that I want to highlight that Councilman Gutenberg brought up that I think are important for the public. So first is there are other bodies that already do this. In fact, it is probably industry standard. I think that was an expression that was used back in April when we had this discussion. But the other thing that's important, I think, is a reason why I support this resolution as written, and I do appreciate you, Mr. Stevens and staff, for getting this together. Is that the boards have to represent what the town wants, right, moving forward underneath those. And they are, in some instances, some of those boards are, quasi judicial or make decisions that are going to impact the future of La Plata. And it's important for them to have what I would call feedback from the residents. And who better than the five folks that were represented, the town of La Plata, the 10,000, 11,000 residents we have. So this makes sense to me. I appreciate Councilman Johnson for bringing it forth, and I look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Councilman Sampson? Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. And pardon my voice right now. I think, this don't need to be looked at as an intimidation manner or whatever it is. The intent is we conduct the interviews, staff draft a number of questions, and whatever questions council asks in the interview. I think it, from my experience of interviewing for a board, I think I was on Teams for like 5 minutes, and each member of that board asks a question, and then they come into open session and make their decision from a consensus from closed session. So I don't see it as a huge burden on staff, on council, or on the applicant. I recognize the fact that we don't have members banging down the doors to serve on our boards and commissions, but the ones we do, we want to make sure that they are really carrying out the strategic plan and vision of the town as we move forward.
Thank you. So we're having a discussion here, and I took this from our last meeting, and I phrased it in a way to some sitting council members and some that have served. I did my own little survey here because I served on the design review board well before even running for mayor. And I know Councilman Sampson has served on a board as well. And I just said, who should interview you for a position on one of the council, the boards, the committees, or the commissions? That's all I said, not leading one way or another. And none of them said all 5 of us. We put, and this is why we're having a discussion. We put an ex officio that is appointed and approved by council on every board, commission, and committee. For that reason, they are the link to the council. I know that even as confident as I can be at times, sitting in front of 5 council members back in 2014, 2012, I think is when I started serving, and then having the chairman there, or chairwoman, chairperson there of the committee, and then having a staff member there, you've got 7 people there. And I'm here to volunteer my time and talent. And to me, I would have thought it was more of an inquisition, more of a, okay, we're going to see if you are good enough to serve on one of the committees. I have no problem having a resume sent to us and us going in, if it's the will of the council, to go into closed session and say, okay, here are 4 resumes. Again, that should be the part of the committee because we're not serving on that committee. Only one of us are going to be serving on that committee. And then you get personalities involved. You don't like Sally Sue or, Jimmy Joe. I'm hoping we're professionals, but sometimes human nature takes over. That is, I know the county commissioners do this, but they're on a bigger scale and we don't have people knocking on our door. So the minute you tell them that they're going to have 5 people that are going to interview them along with 2 people from a committee or 3 people, I would be curious to see how many raise their hand and say, I want to volunteer for that. So that's where I stand with this. I just see it as a barrier. And what about the ones that have already gotten on the committees? I mean, they didn't have to go through this, right? They were interviewed by the chairperson, the staff, the people and the ex officio. So I don't know why the change and why are we putting up more barriers when we can't get volunteers anyway? Councilman Johnson, since it's yours, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, just to be, the intent is only one interview process. It's not an interview with the committee, then staff, and then council. The intent is one interview process and the whole cycle with council.
So you're not even going to, you're not thinking that the chair, the people that serve on the committee would be there? It's only the 5 of us?
Yeah, that's the intent of the resolution.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So that one, I don't have an expertise on Parks and Rec. I don't, Design Review Board, I might be able to hold my own since I served on it for 3.5 years. But who are we as the 5 that aren't the experts when the people that are sitting on the committees, your chair that has been elected by that committee, board, or commission are the ones that have been put in charge? Why are we cutting them out of it? They should have a say. We're putting somebody on a board that they might not be able to get along with. They may not, there's a number of reasons there, but the 5 of us and cutting out anybody that serves on that board, commission, or committee, I think that's probably not the direction we should go in. That's not the, I wouldn't think that's the intent. And then why do we have the ex officio on there? I mean, those are, go ahead.
Yeah, so some thoughts. So one, I do understand your point of not wanting to make the process intimidating, and I don't think we have to sit here and do it from the dais, right? I think we can do it from a work kind of level table or a conference room for the interview. I think in the format that we're talking about doing it, it's likely that, as long as we have a quorum, we're doing the interview. I think the thing that the ex officio members bring that can be helpful too is that because likely one of the ex officio members will be part of the interview process, they bring that knowledge of that board or commission with them to the interview process. I also think that the thing that we bring, us as 5 individuals to it is the level of experience we have with working with our strategic plans, our comprehensive plans, and those kinds of things, and having that perspective on the interaction with the folks that are volunteering, but also say, like, I have not experienced any like just wild off the wall candidates, right? Like, I think anybody we interview is going to be able to function in a group, in that dynamic that we have on these boards and commissions, and any experience they don't have, it's a great way to get involved in democratic processes and kind of learn them. But also a comment about the chair not having a voice in it. The chair's function is to administer the meeting. So I don't see them as having any special role in selecting who the members are, as much as keeping the quorum in order in the meeting itself. So that part of it isn't as much of an issue for me.
So take the chair out of it.
Sure.
But a member who serves on that. So if you have someone that, with the exception of the new committee that was just formed, but if you have someone, I'm going to say from Design Review Board, who has served for many years, and you have someone that is interviewing that, you have Councilman Sampson, who has served on this committee, but how many meetings this year, how many meetings since you have been elected have you had? 3. Okay, so we're 3.5 years worth of, if I were sitting on that committee, 3.5 years worth of experience. So someone can, an applicant can say, do you do this, this, and this? Whereas being new here, do you know, do any of us all know the process that goes through, because you've only been here 1 year sitting on a committee? I just think that cutting out a staff member, where the staff is the one who prepares all of the information, all of that, I think that we are overreaching on this, even though I know the commissioners do this. I don't have any problem taking somebody's application and reviewing that, but I do have a problem sitting in front of a volunteer. It's not a job interview. It is, they're volunteering their time and their talent. I don't know if this would really dissuade people from participating in a committee like this. I mean, in a interview process like this. Any other comments?
I got a comment.
Sure.
So again, similar, I am sympathetic to the arguments that you're bringing. I actually think a lot of them make sense. The only caveat I would have is, if we're so worried about this new process dissuading folks from joining the boards, my only thing would be, look at the evidence that we have today. And there are a lot of boards that still sit without fully staffed folks. So I'm not sure that arguing for one process over another means that we're going to have more folks volunteering for it. So then when I look at the intent of this, right, and what Councilman Johnson brought up in his staff report, the discussion that we had on April 14th, the question becomes simple to me. I would argue, regardless, just based off of historic trends and where we're at, we're probably going to have low attendance. I think what we want to ensure is that the boards reflect what us, the sitting council, and what the people elected us to do, enact our comprehensive plan. And to Councilman Gutenberg's point, having our ex officio sit in that discussion when we have a quorum to ensure that's being carried out. So again, I actually think your argument makes a lot of sense when you sit there and say, hey, it may be a little bit intimidating for some folks to sign up and do this. The only thing is the alternative, they're not signing up anyway. So I definitely want to make sure when somebody does, it's this council and the elected body that has a say on who's sitting on the board.
Great points. So if someone does come forward and they are scheduled for an interview, and they are told that they will be interviewing with the 5 elected officials, what then when they say, thanks, and I'm not interested?
So I'm not sure that premise holds because I'm assuming your argument here is we're going to have somebody that signs up under the new system. Let's assume this passes. And they find out after they signed up, which I'm sure it'll be written in black and white and Mr. Stevens and staff will have the process laid out for them. But let's say for whatever reason, this individual doesn't understand the process and they say, no, thanks. What I would say is excellent. That's somebody who didn't read the process before going through it. Probably not somebody I want sitting on the board anyway.
Okay. Any other questions over here? All right, so if the discussion is closed, Mr. Stevens, do you have anything to add to this?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward. If you are in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I am a nay. All right, brings us to legislation. 5.1, ordinance 26.11.
All right,
Dash
council.
11, sorry.
Good evening. So this is ordinance 26-11. This is revision of the employee handbook. This is your second reading for consideration of adoption. This is an ordinance concerning the revision of the employee handbook for the purpose of amending certain personnel rules and regulations regarding policies on civility in the workplace, gift acceptance, workplace communication, vacation accrual, sale of leave, and heat-related illness prevention and management in the town's employee handbook and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 26-11 as presented? So moved. I will do that. Do I have a second? Okay, motion fails for lack of a second. Go ahead, Mr.
So Madam Mayor, if
Stevens.
I could, then I would really appreciate some feedback from council on what specific language council would like to see modified so that I can bring this back to you on the June 9th meeting for our first reading.
Okay, is there a reason that's, or people did not make a second on this? Councilman Gutenberg, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think really for me, it's just, my comments during the first reading, right? It was really centered around the specificity of the language around communication with council members. My preference is to, again, put that on the elected members' rule of procedure and charter obligations to conduct those kinds of communications or put them into the right channel. I also believe that the terminology that you already have in the handbook or adding to the handbook that I agree with, which is your chain of command language, I think that already covers it. And I just found the council communication piece of it to be too restrictive because I feel like it puts too much potential for risk to an employee that it would make even potentially for some people them to interpret it as problematic to even have a casual conversation. So that was my feeling on that. The other area was around getting into the zone of and I forget the exact terminology that was used there. So the low grade
Low intensity behavior.
yeah. And again, there, I believe that the Code of Civility really kind of covers that. And the thing that as I thought about it more too, that concerns me about that level of specificity in the handbook from a policy perspective is, we want to be a place where people want to be employed. I think about how somebody might feel about the culture of a workplace that's that specific with that. And for me, it kind of gets into that category of zero tolerance policy on things where I believe managers should be developed and entrusted to make decisions and communicate and coach in a way that, you shouldn't have to say that. And then the last thing I'll say on is like even, that terminology with the eye rolling, then, well, I mean, if you really if you're going to get that nitpicky, right? Well, my eyes didn't roll. They just went to an angle, right? There wasn't an arc. It was a straight line. So, you can make yourself nuts going into the level of specificity. And so really that's my feedback. It's just kind of reiterating that. Yeah.
And Councilman Gutenberg, do we have I know that you have eloquently stated your reasons for not putting this forward. And I know I can't just unilaterally say I want this. It has to be the board. So with those, you've written those down. I guess we have to take a consensus
Sure.
afterwards.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not really asking for a specific thing or making a motion at this point.
Okay.
Of like for something for us all to consider. This is more me just kind of reiterating it for staff. And I guess the decision we'll have to make here is, do we think we have enough of a consensus to make a motion to give a very specific direction? Or do we want to give this feedback and allow town staff and the town manager to take that and, take another attempt at meeting that?
I would prefer the latter. So I think just very clear conversation here. We'll take notes. We'll go back and wordsmith a little bit, because what I'm hearing are not big muscle movement changes. This is some tweaking of some language that we can then get back in front of you on at a future meeting. I'll shoot for June 9th, but a future meeting.
Sure.
So, Mr. Stevens, when we are done having this conversation, I would like to wrap it up and just kind of have you repeat back what you've heard, and then see if any of council has a heartache with any of the suggestions that any of us make. And if not, if there's consensus to move these forward, if that's okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Gutenberg. Councilman McCormick?
Yeah, Mr. Stevens, similar comments to the last meeting. I had to go back and rewatch it because I was a little confused, and I get why. For the record, staff sent this back unchanged, because if I were in your position, I would have done the exact same thing with what happened that night. But I was under the impression everything Councilman Gutenberg just said was said that night. I'm fairly confident rewatching the transcript. Councilman Johnson had similar feedback. I stated only one thing on the record, which was I agreed with Councilman Gutenberg. So as long as you're talking about that second option here, I'm very comfortable with that. Staff just coming back, essentially what I would call it, fixing those two areas and then retaking the vote on it. So again, thank you for that recommendation. I appreciate it.
Councilman Sampson?
Yes, my comments are just right in line with theirs on the forms of instability. I thought it was subjective in nature. Like Councilman Gutenberg said, rolling your eyes. Two people see the same thing. One person said they didn't do it. Somebody else said they did. And then what was the intent? So I just say same thing that's already been stated, those two areas, and I'll be fine.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson?
Yes, yeah, so comments from last meeting, all the coaching is subjective. I think civility in the workplace, line 65 through 87 outlines the intent of the policy that you all want to enact. I think that's fine. Line 89 through 127, I think it just goes into too much subjectiveness. And I know the comments were made about, giving the managers the tools and the arsenal to execute their coaching process. That could go a little too far. So I'm okay with the code of civility, or excuse me, the civility in the workplace, 65 through 87, the intent. When you talk about the forms of incivility from 89 to 127, I would love to see that changed. And again, I believe line 158 through 172, communication with the town council needs to come out. And I would argue probably the employees acting as town residents. I don't know why that's in there. I'm assuming because of the above language. But I am okay with, like I said, 65 through 89 and everything else relating to that coming out. Not touching the holiday, vacation, or other leave and heat-related illnesses.
Okay, so Mr. Stevens, I have several questions for you because I did do a deep dive on this. So the language that everyone is just questioning, the low-intensity behavior that violates standards of mutual respect and professionalism, that's line 79 and 80, but the ones that talk about the rolling the eyes and all of that, where did that come from?
That language, and I'll ask Monica to come up here, but she should be able to confirm, but that came from Legit, the local government insurance trust. They're our risk managers and they're the personnel matters attorneys that we use. So they're the ones that recommended that language.
Unable to be heard on the mic.
It's on.
It's on. All right, so just to recap, you said that language came from legit. So I know we don't have our attorney here, but from your perspective as human resources or better yet, Mr. Stevens, from a human resource and risk management perspective, how does explicitly defining and addressing low intensity behavior protect the town and its employees compared to only reacting when conduct escalates to unlawful harassment or hostile work in the environment?
Sure, okay, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Okay. I think we talked about this when this first came up. This is something that I think will rarely be applied because it would typically only come up during a wrongful termination claim against the town. That would be the most likely scenario where you would see this come up, where there could be, I think part of your question was about potential liability or some kind of exposure. So I think it's very, very little risk of any kind of liability or exposure. We don't have it now. The town has never had language like this before. Okay, so and we've survived since 1888 without it. We will survive without it in the future. I think there's very little risk. I think it is important to train new managers and supervisors especially, so that they can identify behaviors because, but that doesn't need to happen here. I can do that in other venues and other ways to get that training to coach and mentor. So I think your question, it was a two-part question, and I think I answered the first part, but I don't remember the second part.
It's just risk and how it's compared to reacting when it escalates, conduct escalates, which you've addressed because it sounds as if you are, when there is a case that for an employee that may end up being terminated, obviously you have to document everything. And it is very specific with eye rolls and things like that. I know that is just saying, okay, that's examples of, they're not going to, there's not a checklist. I've done HR. There's not a checklist that said eye roll, check, they're being fired, shrugging a shoulder. It is just motions that they may be disrespectful on that. All right, question. Since we have chose not to adopt the ordinance tonight, what is the immediate operational impact on our current staff and what version of the employee handbook guidelines remain in effect?
Well, the currently adopted employee handbook will remain in effect. I think it was adopted in February of this year. So that will remain in effect unless and until it's replaced by something new. The immediate operational impact, I don't know that there would be a negative operational impact at this time. When the new budget takes effect, we run the risk of being out of alignment because the new code language, which is not being challenged here this evening, about the leave sellback and the vacation accrual, those things, we will be out of alignment unless and until we get some new language adopted. And then but I think the most important thing will be the heat-related illness. And is there a timeline on which we have to have those procedures in place?
For the guidelines, so that's actually already mandated by the state. So I'm admittedly behind the curve getting it into the handbook in a permanent place, but I wanted to make sure it was as good as I could get it first. So we are already technically out of compliance with the state for not having one in writing and enacted.
So if council this evening, there's a consensus to tweak the employee handbook with the suggestions made, and we come back on June 9th would it be a first reading?
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to, we'll start over.
I think it'd be cleanest to start over.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if that does go through, the second reading would be
June 23rd, because
All
we
right.
don't have a meeting the week of MML. So
that would get us right under the wire for our July 1st adoption of the budget.
correct. So we still have.
Okay, so we've got time. All right, so are there any other questions or comments before I ask Mr. Stevens to kind of repeat back what council we'll have a consensus on indicating whether this is what we want changed. Anything? Okay, Mr. Stevens, what did you hear?
So there's basically two sections that I think we want to look at. So there's some subjectivity in the civility code. And Counselor Johnson specifically called it out by line number, which is great. So between lines 89 and 127, take a look at that and try and make that more objective, less subjective, and modify that pretty heavily. And then the communications with council members was the other section. And I'm looking at it and I just want to be clear. So Counselor Johnson, you called out from line 160 down. And I guess I'm just going to ask council to be even a little more specific than that. I mean, I'm looking at this, the first couple of sentences, it really just says, you know, employees are expected to use the appropriate supervisory and administrative channels to address workplace and operational concerns. If it stopped there, would that be okay? And we just strike the rest of that paragraph? Okay, all right. So then if that's the case, and I saw head nods, if that's the case, then I think we're ready to go. We'll get this tweaked for you and bring it back on June 9th.
Were there any other, just the two? And you know, that communication with town council, it is to protect not only the elected body here, because we are human and we want to hear from the employees, but that's not our position. That's Mr. Stevens's position. And I think being most of us affiliated somehow, some way with military, we understand the chain of command. And that's what I think the intent was there, just to make sure. So it's going to be up to Mr. Stevens to direct his department heads, just to make sure that they're doing that. Okay, so is there a consensus with the subjectivity and civility 89 to 127 for Mr. Stevens and his leadership team to look at that and tweak that, and then to the communication with council, with town council to actually remove a majority of the portion of that, but just keep the first couple lines? If you are in a consensus with that, please indicate by saying aye. If not, it'll be nay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you,
All right.
council. Thank
Back on to legislation 5.2, ordinance 46-12, finance committee, first reading only.
Okay, this is ordinance 26-12, Finance Committee, first reading for introduction. This is an ordinance concerning Chapter 21, Finance Committee, for the purpose of amending Chapter 21 of the Code of the Town of La Plata, formalizing the role of the Finance Committee and providing analytical review, advisory opinions, and ongoing monitoring of the town's financial condition and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. Ordinance 26-13.
Okay, this is ordinance 26-13, authority to correct Scrivener's errors, first reading for introduction only. An ordinance concerning authority to correct Scrivener's errors for the purpose of authorizing the town attorney and town clerk to correct Scrivener's errors in the town code and in ordinances, resolutions, and other official documents adopted by the council without the need for readoption of such legislation or documents and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you. Resolution 26-32.
This is resolution 26-32, Wills Memorial Park Walkway Award of Contract for introduction and consideration of adoption. A resolution concerning Wills Memorial Park Walkway Upgrade Award of Contract for the purpose of authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract agreement for the replacement of the concrete walkway at Wills Memorial Park and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 26-32 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman McCormick. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to Resolution 26-33.
All right, resolution 26-33, board, commission, and committee appointments, interview and selection process for introduction and consideration of adoption. This is a resolution concerning board, commission, and committee appointments, interview and selection process for the purpose of establishing a formal, consistent, and transparent process for the review and appointment of volunteer members to town boards, commissions, and committees, and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 26-33 as presented?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilman Gutenberg. Do I
Second.
have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries. That brings us to,
I just want to clarify when we do the minutes, and we're
Sorry.
going to do the minutes next week, and I'm going to have to go back and watch this video unless I write it down. So
Councilman Gutenberg.
Gutenberg on the motion, Counselor Johnson on the second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam
Either
Mayor.
way. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
All right. And I was a nay. Moving on to reports from town council. Councilman Gutenberg.
All right. Just real quick. So last Friday, May 15th, I went to the HPC meeting on Friday. We discussed there, that was my last HPC meeting. So we discussed the capital improvement project for the historic firehouse. We discussed the way the council voted on that in the FY27 budget. Also discussed some of my personal views with the HPC on that, and we just had a good conversation, I think, around it, and like discussed, the different things that might be considered as they continue to shape that going forward. So it was a good meeting in that way, and that's really it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman McCormick.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. So first, see Chief Norris in the back there, but thank you for the invite to the police awards dinner the other night. I know a lot of us had the opportunity to attend in person, and just like I shared last year when I made these comments, you forget a lot of what the La Plata Police Department does, the partnership that it has with Charles County Sheriff's Office and all other different police departments around here. So getting to celebrate a lot of those folks that really do, and this is not hyperbolic, put themselves in dangerous situations and literally saving lives. And there were two excellent stories that you shared that night that really stuck with me. I want to say thank you for the invite there, and continue to really celebrate those officers. So thank you for all that you do. Memorial Day was yesterday, so I hope everybody had an opportunity to celebrate with their friends and families and remember the reason why we have that holiday. Congrats to Maxwell and Riley for being a semifinalist. It was awesome having them up here. And again, I think both of their proposals, like Madam Mayor said, putting yourselves in the mind of a 9 and 10-year-old and what they're looking at, the problems they're solving, is really not that far radical off from what we're trying to solve up here. So that was great to hear. Sacred Heart's 125th anniversary is coming up June 12th. They did ask me to make a comment tonight and then a comment on the June 9th meeting, but they're inviting everybody in the town to come. So I see we have a couple of strategic leaders out there, but please go on the Sacred Heart website, RSVP if you want to attend the event. 125 years is a great milestone. And again, we do have some important celebrants coming down to celebrate that mass. And then finally, I had several meetings with residents one-on-one, to include one that Mr. Stevens got to sit in on. But the one I want to share with the council was with the Agricopia HOA. So they brought up an interesting question, and it's interesting in that it's something that we, frankly, I didn't even recognize. Maybe you all did, but something that maybe should come to discussion at some point in the future. I'm still mulling on what they want, and I've asked them to give us a little bit more information. But just to share the background with you all, Agricopia's HOA, and then they did share that they spoke to two other ones that are sharing the same concern. They have just irrigation systems, no sewage, because obviously, those things don't require runoff or anything like that. And they were asking for potentially having the council look at an agenda item or a discussion on looking at just those specific entities that don't have sewer or any sort of toiletry or anything like that built into what they do with the HOAs, and they're just irrigation systems, looking at giving them an exception for just water. Now that has to be weighed, of course, with the water conservation plan that we're talking about as well. But it's something I hadn't really thought of until they brought it up, that they're a little bit unique in that they're literally just irrigation. So not sure where I fit, but I did want to share that with the council just to make you aware that that is what at least 3 HOAs, according to Agricopia, are talking about. And I wouldn't be shocked if you all start getting some emails there as well. So just an interesting issue that I hadn't really thought of before that came across my desk. And with that, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Sampson? Councilman Johnson?
Nothing, thank you.
All right. And since we've last met, we did Bike to Work Day on Friday, May 15th. It was to support healthy and environmentally friendly transportation options throughout the community. So it was in partnership with many people, but Tri-City Council and the county commissioners. It was a trickle, but it is gaining interest, and they have some fabulous ideas for next year. So it is going to be in May again next year. So you have a whole year to plan for that. And as we saw tonight, I did get to present in front of all the A&S students a certificate to Riley and Maxwell and congratulate them on their achievement of being chosen for as a semifinalist in the statewide essay contest of If I Were Mayor. So they did a very nice job tonight. I'm so pleased that they were able to share their award-winning essay with us. If you were here last Friday at the concert, you were by yourself because it was canceled due to the rain, but I have it on great authority that the weather is looking pitch perfect on Friday. We will have Rocksteady Band, and they are new to our stage. They will be featuring R&B, pop, and DC sound favorites. So we encourage everyone to come out here. So, come down here and enjoy the concert. It's free. Bring food if you want. No alcohol, no pets. Thank you very much. No vaping, no smoking. You'll hear me say that throughout the concerts, but we'll have food trucks here for food for purchase. But it's just a wonderful free evening, and without having to leave La Plata to get some great talent here. As Councilman McCormick said, it was Memorial Day yesterday, and I know that Councilman Johnson and I had an opportunity to partake in the ceremony at the American Legion, and the keynote speaker was amazing and put everything in perspective. It's not about celebrating, it's about remembering and honoring those who paid the ultimate price for our country. I also I got to close a chapter for the Business Growth Advantage program. They had a graduation. They had done 11 cohorts. And what they did was, it was through the Economic Development Department for Charles County. This was funded through ARPA funding. And they had 25 people each cohort that went through this, their businesses, and learned a whole lot more about their business, how they could advertise it more, and how their financials could be strengthened. And when they graduated, if they graduated, and it wasn't a gimme, they actually received $10,000 to help with their business. They had over 100 complete this program. So the EDD will be launching a new program. It's a pilot program, and it's for entrepreneurs. It's for startup businesses. So that is, I think they have 13 in this cohort. So the money is out there. The opportunities are out there, not only within La Plata, but within Charles County for our businesses, because small businesses are the backbone of our community. So those are great opportunities. Officer of the Year, Patrol Officer, First Class Nicole McGovern. Thank you very much, Chief. Yeah, we were joking around at the banquet. I purposefully called him Captain because he forgot me last year. So you are now up to Chief again. That's in the past, but thank you very much. But congratulations to your whole team there, but to First Patrol Officer, First Class Nicole McGovern for Officer of the Year. June 4th, big deal here in La Plata because it is La Plata's high school graduation, 9:00 at the Blue Crabs. I will be there. June 5th, we have our Friday night concert, which will be a Latin and salsa music. So that's coming up. And then our next council meeting will be held on June 9th. So with that, thank you all for joining us. Have a great week, and this meeting's adjourned at 7:07 p.m.
So much.